Hey guys, so I'm going to explain to you what amplification is. So, amplification is a literary device where an author tries to enhance a sentence by adding more information or detail to it to increase its importance and make it more understandable. So, basically, what the author does is take a plain sentence because it's too boring or not doesn't have enough detail to show its importance. So the author adds more structure to it by adding more details and words, um, by repeating some words and giving it more of a meaning to it. And so here's an example. The thesis paper was difficult. And so after amplifying the sentence, it becomes the thesis paper was difficult. It required extensive research, data collection, sample surveys, interviews, and a lot of field work. So by adding these extra details of how the thesis was difficult, it emphasizes to what extent the thesis paper was difficult. And so it shows that the thesis paper indeed was very difficult because of the extra workload. Another common example is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose, and then by amplifying the sentence, it becomes Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw him, you would even say it glows. So, the idea that the writer of the sentence is trying to show that Rudolph had a very bright nose, and by adding this extra detail or phrase to it, he's emphasizing more that Rudolph had such a very shiny nose. And so the purpose of amplification is to allow the writer to call more attention to a specific expression or detail that when reading could be passed over as a normal sentence. And so it slows the reader down and allows him to realize the importance of this detail or idea that the author is trying to explain. And so the author does this by characterizing speakers, illustrating scenes and moments in literature, and then describing in more in depth by adding extra detail and showing that it's more important. So basically, the three purposes behind amplification is to carefully explain an idea, further slowly elaborate on it, and expressively describe it even more. And so, some ways that we can identify amplification in text is by looking at words pile on in order, more like at more words coming on describing one thing. So, for example, he's a curly, sweet, blonde, little, tiny, funny puppy. The author is trying to show the greatness of this puppy by adding on all these extra words that describe this puppy. And so another example is the accumulation of information in order of its importance. And so at the end of this phrase, it's going to show the most important part. And so, for example, we scored a goal, then another. 45 minutes later, we were winning 4-0. And so at the end, the author reveals the importance of scoring that goal in the overall game because it allowed them to win with with 4-0. And so this exaggerates the importance of the scoring goal. And so lastly, another way you can pick up on amplification is by looking at vivid details and imagery. And so, for example, you can look at a person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. You can have a wonky nose, a crooked mouth, and double chin, and stick out teeth. But if you have good thoughts, it will shine out of your face like sunbeams, and you will always look lovely. And so what idea the author is trying to say is that a person who has good thoughts can never be ugly. And by explaining this with vivid imagery of an ugly person and showing how their good thoughts can be good, overcast the ugliness, then the author is emphasizing the point that he's trying to make. And so one way that you can remember amplification is that amplifying means to get louder. And so what the author is trying to do is that he or she is trying to turn up the speakers on what the audience needs to know. and pay attention to and understand. So amplification shows that less is not more, and in fact more is more. So I hope that helps.